All right, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us tonight to pilot this new show that we're doing that we're tentatively calling Inspired by You. Not specifically you, but just the you in the broader sense of the word. The whole goal is just to learn about who our customers are. Everyone from different walks of life gets up to all sorts of different things, and we want to hear about it. So yeah, we can kick it off. Let us know who you are, where you're located, and that's a good start.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, John. It's nice to see you after many years of working together and then you doing your own thing. So, hey, everyone in the podcast universe. My name's Jeff, and I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Awesome. The ice box.
Yeah. Well, it's getting that way today too, man. It's starting to get cold here, so this is an appropriate time to kick this podcast off in the Midwest.
Oh, good. Yeah, I know. I haven't been. My brother lives out in Blaine right now, and I usually keep up with the weather out there, but I haven't really. Are you guys getting winter coming early?
I think last night was down to like 29, low 30s, something like that. Today was around the 40s, so we're starting to get there.
Yeah, it's creeping
fingers
in.
Crossed, farmer's almanac for a big ski winter.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome, Jeff. So, what do you do professionally and then also for fun, which is arguably more important?
Yeah. Well, professionally, I work in marketing. I worked, as you know, with you at QBP and as part of Surly Bikes for a while. And now I work in marketing with Titan Paint Sprayers, which is a company here in Plymouth that makes contractor professional equipment. And then for fun, raised in a big outdoor family. So that was always a big part of my life that carried over into adulthood. So summer, we've got ultra running. Year round, we've got hiking. And then winter, big cross country skier, snowboarder, downhill skier as well. If I can get out and keep moving, I would say that's a good way to spend the day, is how I can sum it up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm curious, coming from working in the outdoor industry with Surly Bikes, your coworkers and all the people that you're surrounded with, a lot of them, I won't say all, but a lot of people share those same interests. And I'm curious if you've seen, in your new role, if you're seeing similar things or if it's,
I would say the percentage is much smaller, but the interest is still there. I think that, and I'm sure you know as well too, that those of us who chose a career in the outdoor industry very often chose it for the people, the culture, and the benefits that existed outside of maybe the standard paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've experienced is, I think there's still interest in this industry, but it tends to be a little bit more of maybe that four-wheeling, that hunting or fishing type interest in the outdoors, rather than that kind of moving through nature that we saw so much of when we worked together previously.
Right. Yeah. The human powered and, silent sports versus the motorized. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. In some ways it's interesting. It's kind of nice, I guess, to be known as the crazy guy that does 100-mile races again. Like, at QBP, I could say that, but then you had Paul Ziegel and Duke who were winning the 100-mile race.
Right.
So I sort of went from, the small fish in the pond where everybody did it to kind of being that guy where everybody wants to hear stories at lunchtime again about what you got up to. So on a personal level, that's a little more fun.
Right. Yeah, but that's kind of cool. It's nice to see that there is still that interest in the outdoors, even in a completely different world and maybe in a place where you wouldn't necessarily expect it. One of the things that I'm hoping that I can do by talking to a lot of different people is just, bridge that gap a little bit, because yeah, we're all different. Everyone gets up to different things. But I think at the end of the day, people realize that you have a lot more in common with other folks than you may realize. And while, yeah, you may do it on your, by foot or by ski, and someone else is doing it, with a motor between their legs. If we can all come to a place and agree, at least that doing the thing in the place is fantastic, then I think that that's progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lucked out too. I mean, the guy that ended up hiring me, he turned out to be a giant soccer fan. He turned out to be a runner. I mean, he blows me away. He's, a 5:45 mile type of guy, and I can't touch that. But
Wow.
yeah, I think culturally it definitely still exists. But yeah, I think you summed it up well. It tends to be maybe a little more gasoline focused than I've been used to for the last 10 years of my life. But there's still an incredible amount of enjoyment and respect for the outdoors there.
Cool.
And I think that as long as that exists in any personal or professional culture, that's a culture that I can work in. I don't know that I could ever go work for an oil company, because I think maybe I would just run into too much trouble there. But I think that, you hear about their fishing trips on the weekends, you hear about the adventures that they take, and they're different, but they also explore areas of Minnesota that maybe I wouldn't have thought to explore.
Yeah.
And I can look at those areas and find challenges that are maybe more suited to the way that I want to approach nature, but they're in an area of the state I never would have thought to have looked.
Yeah.
I found new running trails up north near lakes that these guys fish at, just because some guy tells me there's a trail up there I should check out. So there's always that possibility of finding that common ground with the people that you work with, that you spend frankly more time than you do with your family some days.
Right.
And it's been really fun. I think that's been a really good experience.
Awesome. Yeah, that very cool. So yeah, we're moving right along. This can get as heavy as you feel like you want to, but I'd love to know about just an obstacle that you've had to overcome in life.
All right. Well, I think probably the one that would stand out to me the most was when I got to the end of college. I was kind of one of those kids who got to the end and didn't put in really any thought into what was coming next. Like, college was just sort of there. And so very close to the end of my senior year, I realized I needed to do something, because I couldn't Van Wilder it up for 3 more years. So I took on an opportunity on 2 weeks' notice to travel to China and teach English, and told my family after I walked across the stage and got my degree at commencement that I was leaving in a month and I would be gone for 2 years. So that went well, and didn't speak the language, had no idea what I was getting into, had never taught children of any grade before. And it just seemed like a really incredible adventure, and approached it positively. And then, as I think sometimes happens in life, positivity kind of ran into the wall of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And finding out that just being happy all the time was not necessarily going to get me through what I had to do over there. And the language barrier, the cultural differences, the expectations of the education system over there. It was, at least initially, I'm doing the math here because I'm getting old, like a 23-year-old kid, it was the most challenging thing that I'd ever had to do. And didn't generally get a lot of support from the school. You were kind of there to do your own thing, and they assumed you knew what you were doing. Mm-hmm. And I can very clearly remember having to teach class on Christmas Day, because it wasn't a holiday.
Right.
And being away from everybody that I knew for that long up to that point in my life. And very clearly remember going back to my room on Christmas Day at like 2 p.m. after my classes and just breaking down, just not wanting to be there. wanting to forfeit the round trip ticket they had paid for me to go home at the end of the term and just pay for my own money and just get out. And I remember calling my dad to tell him that I was going to come home, that this just didn't work and it wasn't what I was going to do. And he told me a very similar story about when he had sort of faced some struggles in his own life. And the message he gave me at the time was, this is something that you want to quit right now, but I guarantee you if you give it another 2-3 months, you're not going to want to quit. Stick it out, honor the commitment, embrace all the cultural changes instead of being frustrated by the obstacles that you were running into. And the next 16 months were the best 16 months I think that I'd had up to that point in my life.
Wow.
And so, that's really, when I lived there, that's when I discovered ultra running. That's when I discovered trail running. I had an enormous amount of free time, and I made friends with a couple guys who owned a few of the mountains behind the school where I taught, where they would grow tea and yame berries. And I had access to all those trails. And that is, I had grown up in an outdoor family, but I'd grown up in a canoeing, hiking family. I had never grown up in a move through the woods fast family.
Yeah.
And discovering both kind of the strength to persevere through this task that I set myself up to do, and then using that time to discover this new method of moving through places in the world that had always been so special to me growing up, and that being the outdoors. It introduced me to a sport that frankly has become a huge focus of the rest of my life. I mean, most of what I do, I'm never going to win those races. I think my Instagram description, if I remember right, is a trail runner with air quotes around it, who knows that he won't win, but he will have the most fun. Much of what I do year round is now dedicated to that. And I don't know that I ever would have discovered that sport had I not taken on the challenge of living over there. So I think in a lot of ways, there were an enormous number of hidden blessings that emerged from this very difficult personal challenge for me at the time.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot to that. I mean, I think there a lesson in that is just, perseverance, and just sometimes, like, when you really, really don't want to do something, that is that moment, that pivotal moment where you have to keep on doing it to break through, get to the other side. I could talk for hours about that, but I won't. We'll keep things moving. And so, let's hear about just a great adventure memory that you have.
Man, there's a lot of those. So, I mean, China's always going to be a go-to, but we talked about that, so we'll pull something else out. I think very recently, one of the best memories that I have. So, my father's 73, and he's really the one who got me into the outdoors. And after he retired, he decided that he was going to complete the Appalachian Trail. And so he trains in Stillwater, Minnesota. For people who listen to this and don't know, there's a series of very steep staircases in and out of this valley town down to the river. And he trains on that for 2 to 5 hours a day, year round, with his weighed out backpack. And, he's the type of guy that cuts the handle off his toothbrush to save weight, and cuts half his sleeping roll in half, all that stuff. And so last October, I was given an opportunity to go with him for 2 weeks to do a section of the Appalachian Trail from Harpers Ferry south to Virginia. And I think maybe we all go through kind of a period where we pull away from our parents and then we sort of come back to them as we get a little bit older. And, I mean, when you're 18, 19, maybe you don't want to spend time with mom and dad, but when you're in your 30s, you kind of do again.
Right.
And to spend this 2 weeks, I mean, one, at the time he was 72. Just seeing my 72-year-old dad power up these enormous hills on the Appalachian Trail, and to spend, 8 to 9 hours a day, either walking in total solitude and just knowing that this person who has meant so much to me through my life was right there, or to spend, 8 to 9 hours a day discussing anything that came into our minds. And to have that experience with him at that age, especially when I know some friends whose fathers maybe walk to the mailbox and back, and that's kind of it for the day. That's really something that I will always treasure. It was 2 weeks of the best discussion and the best time I think I've ever had with him. I've had crazier adventures. There's no denying that, but I don't know that I've had a more fun one that I can think of than to get to spend that time with him doing that.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely something really special. And I think, it's just so great that you guys got to do that. I think of my dad who's 73 and I'm like, that would never, that would never happen. But yeah, that's just such a great moment to be able to share, especially, as you're getting older and, understand more about life and what a all-encompassing experience and struggle at times it can be to be able to kind of reconnect in adulthood and have a moment like that. That's super cool. Man, I'm like realizing now, like, the format of this show, I'm like, we'll have it be like 15 to 20 minutes. I'm like, this I could talk like for hours and hours about this stuff. But we won't. So second to last thing here is just, do you have any, awesome plans for this winter? Any good adventures or trips coming up?
Well, right now, I'm actually dealing with a little bit of a running injury, so I've had to kind of back off a little bit. I did the Superior Trail Marathon in September, and my wife wanted to run her first marathon, so she decided to run the hardest marathon in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And so I've had to back off a little bit, getting ready for cross-country ski season, take some of the weight and repetitive motion off the running on the ankle. So I had planned on trying Arrowhead again this winter. I tried it a couple of years ago, didn't go the way I wanted. But no sense in spending the time and money when you know that you're sort of dealing with this repetitive stress injury. So the focus right now is Appalachian Trail 2022. So I'm going to go back with my dad, and we're going to flip-flop and go up north, and we'll be in the close to the 100-mile wilderness. So getting close to the northern terminus. And then long-term goal is to stay healthy and try to sign up and take another shot at Arrowhead in 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I hope dealing with the injuries is just the worst thing ever. So I wish you a speedy and full recovery.
Thank you.
And so lastly here, I know this one's a little bit of a gimme because we know each other, but how did you hear about Cold Case Gear and how do you use our products?
Well, I heard about it from this guy named John. I think it was in the lunchroom one day. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So yes, I heard about it from you with the initial Kickstarter. So I've had, I think, the very first gen pouch all the way from the beginning. And that one's been in use for several years. And then just recently, as everybody listening to this should know, got the new one, which we're very excited to put through its paces. I've got about maybe 80 miles worth of trail on it so far in some of the chilly mornings and hikes and stuff. I use them both primarily for winter sport activities. I did take the pouch on the Appalachian Trail last fall, and so kept my phone and my dad's phone and a spare battery pack in it. And for the record, he was very impressed by it.
Oh, cool.
He was very used to having a dead phone until he could get to town and to charge it up at a hotel. So even after that amount of time, the battery longevity that he got was really incredible. I texted him that I was doing this, and he told me to tell you that he liked
cool.
So winter sports, I've taken it up every year that I've had it when I would work the Surly aid station at Arrowhead. Since we're playing music in the middle of the woods all night, you gotta keep the phone battery alive. I took it up the year that I attempted Arrowhead. And although my body didn't make it to the finish, my phone battery did. And then I also, in a non-sporting way, I also take it every time we go to extended music festivals, when you're camping for 2 or 3 days for festivals for battery life too. New one, that will be, I'm excited to get that one on the water in the summer for paddleboarding and everything like that. I've been using a very bulky, hard plastic case right now that's not buoyant. So I've had to be very careful about strapping it down. So I'm really excited to get that narrower profile case out there. And then also how it fits in the running vest and in the hiking backpack. I'm very excited to get some more time with that. Initial impressions of it in the running vest are, it's much better fit across your back, in between your back and the water pouch. And then cross-country skiing, that's been the other big one. So skiing loops around here in the winter, 3, 4, 5-hour sessions on the weekend, kind of slip the headphones on and just skate around the park. And those are really the primary ways that I have. And of course, because it's Minnesota, snow shoveling too, because everything's better with music, and you don't want your phone to die when you're shoveling snow.
Yeah.
So it's been a real year-round variety of activity mix. It's a really good device for kind of those outdoor aerobic athletic endeavors. But frankly, it's also just nice to have for, we've got the Lake Nokomis, which is a big lake here in Minneapolis for people, again, that haven't been here, is about 100 yards behind me that way. And they have a 4-day national pond hockey tournament. And I take my phone out there and use it to play music for my friends that are in there. And playing in the tournament keeps it warm, keeps it functioning all day. So it really crosses into a lot of different areas for me, athletic and leisure. I think it's been a really good fit.
Awesome, man. I'm stoked to hear that. Definitely happy that it's working out really well for you. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on and helping me to pilot this. You gave some super thoughtful answers. So yeah, thanks again. And yeah, you'll have to keep in touch and send me some photos and let me know how it's working out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to get a deeper review as the temperatures drop here in the new one. I've been waiting for that one to kick off for a while now, because I was sending you messages back a while ago waiting for it to come on to pre-order. So this is one that I'm really stoked to try out as the mercury dips here in Minnesota.